Marcus Rashford is facing the biggest decision of his professional career, nearly a decade after making his debut. His desire to leave Manchester United is real, but wanting out is one thing, actually making it happen is another. United's summer rebuild kicked off with promise, landing Matheus Cunha from Wolves for £62.5 million. But since then, the transfer momentum has stalled. Part of the challenge, convincing top players to join a club with no European football on offer is never easy. And the rest? Complicated negotiations, inflated prices, and difficult payment structures. But perhaps the biggest obstacle lies within. Before Manchester United can truly reshape their squad, new sporting director Jason Wilcox and his team must solve a pressing problem. What to do with players no longer in the club's plans? Offloading them is the only way to raise funds and ease the wage bill. And right at the heart of this dilemma are two names, Jadon Sancho and Marcus Rashford. The English duo appear to be outside of new manager Ruben Amorim's long-term vision, but selling them is far easier said than done, especially when you consider their wages. Rashford is currently on £300,000 a week, around £15.6 million per season. Sancho isn't far behind, pocketing £250,000 a week. Those figures make them two of the highest earners at Old Trafford, behind only Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes. It's another stark reminder of the structural issues left behind by the Glazer regime: poor recruitment, bloated wages, and a lack of long-term planning. And now it falls to Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his new executive team to clean up the mess. The hard truth? United have too many players whose performances simply don't justify their paychecks. If Sancho is the cautionary tale of a gamble gone wrong in the transfer market, then Rashford is something far more painful, a homegrown talent who's lost his way. Once the pride of Carrington, Rashford gave fans a flash of hope early in Amorim's tenure. In the new manager's first match in charge, he found the net against Ipswich Town, just 2 minutes in. That goal felt like a statement. Rashford looked sharp, alert, dangerous, like he could be United's version of Victor Gyökeres at Sporting. Fast, aggressive, and lethal when given the right service. Latching onto a brilliant run from Amad Diallo down the right, Rashford timed his movement perfectly to meet the low cross and smashed it past the keeper. A week later, he backed it up with a brace against Everton, helping United cruise to a 4-0 victory in the Premier League. But that promising relationship between Rashford and Amorim collapsed almost as quickly as it began. Everything changed when Amorim discovered a serious breach of discipline. On November 29, 2024, just 48 hours before United were set to face Everton at Old Trafford, Rashford was spotted partying into the early hours at a bar in Manchester. For a manager working tirelessly to rebuild a broken team spirit, it was nothing short of a slap in the face. To Amorim, it wasn't just about one night out. It was a betrayal of trust. This was the very player he believed could lead the new era at United. And instead, Rashford became the symbol of everything the club was trying to leave behind. And the truth is, this wasn't the first time. Rashford's professionalism had already come into question under Erik ten Hag. Those issues had been simmering for a while. Amorim just happened to be the one who finally drew the line. This time, the club backed their manager 100%. Manchester United may lose games. They may still fall short on the pitch. But what they won't tolerate any longer is having bad apples. Players who disrespect the shirt, the fans, and the project. In the end, Rashford was quietly moved on, vanishing completely over the Christmas period and throughout January 2025. His loan move to Aston Villa in early February sent a clear message to the rest of the squad. No one is untouchable. But now, 5 months later, Marcus Rashford is back at Manchester United. A hamstring injury in late April cut short his spell at Villa Park, and with just 4 goals and 5 assists in 17 appearances, he didn't do enough to convince Villa to trigger a £40 million permanent transfer. It was a far cry from the electric Rashford of the 2022-23 season, when he bagged 30 goals across all competitions and looked reborn. Many thought that version of Rashford had finally arrived to stay. But in hindsight, it now seems like just a brief flash of brilliance rather than the start of something greater. At 27, Rashford still hasn't become the player United fans hoped he'd grow into. Look at the numbers: 5 goals in 20, 21, 22, 30 goals in 20, 22, 23, 8 goals in 2023, 24, 8 goals in 20, 24, 25. His form reads like a roller coaster, and time is running out. Inside the club, patience has worn thin. The current leadership knows they can't afford to wait around for another false dawn. This summer, they'll do everything in their power to move him on. But the question is, who's willing to take the gamble? His wages alone are a massive stumbling block. Rashford remains one of the highest earners at Old Trafford, and few clubs can realistically afford him. Aston Villa still admire him, but let's be honest, the transfer fee and salary package are beyond their means. The Midlands club had the highest wage-to-revenue ratio in the Premier League last season, a staggering 96%. And after missing out on the Champions League, Unai Emery's side are expected to operate with a significantly reduced transfer budget. Compared to Aston Villa, Barcelona is the dream. Marcus Rashford has even cut short his holiday and thrown himself into intense solo training sessions in Marbella, Spain, while waiting for clarity on his future. In an interview, he hinted, "Spain is amazing, and it's not too far from home. If I trained here long-term, that would be perfect. Just a 3-hour flight my family could visit any time." A subtle green light, perhaps, to the Catalan giants. And Barcelona, under Hansi Flick, are indeed eager to add firepower, especially with Robert Lewandowski approaching 37. Rashford, with his ability to play both as a central striker and off the left, ticks several boxes. But the truth is, he's not Flick's first choice. At best, Rashford is seen as a plan B, a backup in case Barcelona fail to land Nico Williams from Athletic Bilbao. But with recent developments pointing toward a breakthrough in negotiations, the door to Camp Nou appears to be opening for Nico and slowly closing for Rashford. Could they still both end up at Barcelona? Technically, yes, but only under very specific conditions. Manchester United would have to agree to a loan, and Rashford would need to accept a drastic wage cut, potentially as much as £10 million. That scenario? Highly unlikely. United want a permanent sale. They need funds to reinvest, and Rashford's salary remains a huge stumbling block. But the challenges go deeper than just money. Inside top clubs across Europe, there's growing skepticism about Rashford's trajectory. Many believe the Carrington graduate has already peaked and no longer has the upside once promised. His underwhelming stint at Aston Villa did little to change that narrative. Out of the 4 goals he scored there, 2 came against Preston North End, a side sitting 20th in the championship table, just a single point above the relegation zone. In big moments, he disappeared. Take the Champions League quarter-final against PSG. In the first leg, Rashford was anonymous. 79 minutes on the pitch, 0 shots on goal. And if you move him back out wide, another problem emerges: efficiency. Rashford lacks the energy and relentless dribbling ability of someone like Nico Williams, a player who thrives creating chances for others and constantly presses from the front. In contrast, Rashford has been accused, time and again, by English media of lacking effort and urgency, even in games where his team is losing. The truth is, Rashford is only truly dangerous when he's the focal point, freed from defensive duties, with a system built to serve him. That's when his instinctive movement and space exploitation shine. But in the modern game, with high pressing and intense tactical demands, it's difficult to carry a player who doesn't contribute defensively. At Barcelona, that simply won't fly. Players like Rafinha and Lamine Yamal are expected to track back, press, and fight for every ball, with or without the ball. Rashford, by contrast, risks becoming the odd man out in Flick's system, and so the once proud symbol of English football finds himself in limbo, not good enough to attract serious offers, not humble enough to settle at United, and not trusted enough to lead. Marcus Rashford is at a crossroads, wanted nowhere, welcomed nowhere, and still unsure what comes next.